With that, welcome everyone to XNT315, Modernizing a Spinoff in the Cloud, Allspring's Journey with AWS. Today you're going to be hearing from a couple different people. We have Mr. Justin Stokes. He is the head of technical architecture and strategy at Allspring Global Investments. We also have Vikas Babu Gali, who is a senior solutions architect here at AWS. He specializes in Microsoft technology, specifically SQL Server. He goes super deep in that. So me, I'm Thor Giddings. So on your bingo card, if you have meet a person with a superhero name, hey, you got one. So I am the US Enterprise Applications, Migrations, and Modernization Solutions Architect Leader. No, that's a lot of words, but hey, if you have Microsoft workloads, if you have SAP workloads, if you have VMware workloads, servers, serverless, containers, all those different types of things, that's what my group does. More than happy to help you bring those to AWS. So enough with the title slide. Let's talk about the agenda today. So I'm going to be talking about how customers move to AWS. Justin's going to talk about who is Allspring Global, their driving factors to move to AWS, their journey to the cloud, their experience since moving to AWS, some of their future plans, and then Vikas is going to talk a little bit about modernization, and he has a really cool demo of technology that was built specifically for you, the customers at AWS. So hope you stay around for that. It's really interesting. Okay, so this is a 300 level talk about Allspring's journey to AWS. And it's probably similar to the journey that you're facing right now, or maybe you faced in the past. So, you know, the problem that you're facing is probably like, how do I pick up a complex set of workloads and move them into AWS without impacting my customers, right? So you probably have a bunch of different dependent systems, and you're probably thinking, well, how do I move my Active Directory, and what's my Windows file share strategy, and what am I going to do about SQL Server, and what about these COTS applications? Well, we're going to talk a lot about that today, and Justin's going to talk specifically about how he has found success in moving to AWS. The key thing that I want you to think about while you're hearing all this is, what brings my company value? And one of those things that I probably should just offload to AWS, because if it's not bringing your company value, if it's not impacting your customer's experience, maybe that's some of that undifferentiated heavy lifting that you can just move to the side into a managed service. Okay, so start with the why. Why are you moving to AWS? What are you trying to achieve? Some customers are looking to leave their data center. Some are looking to be more nimble and innovative. Some are trying to cut costs, and some are trying to do more with less. But I'll tell you, the vast majority, and I'm guessing, can I see a show of hands? You're trying to do all those things at the same time, right? Yes, got some nods, awesome. So, it's really important to think about a project like this as a complex transformation. At the end of the day, this isn't another IT project. You need all the teams pulling in the same direction at the same time. So you have to ask yourself, is everyone bought in? Not just IT, not just your developers, but is operations bought in? Are your business stakeholders bought in from the very beginning? So, what's critical for success? Now, I'll share a little of my background of where I've seen success with customers. I've talked to hundreds, probably even thousands of customers at this point. And, when I talk to them, one of the first things I ask them, especially if they've been on AWS for a while, is the time machine question. Now, you might be thinking, Thor, what's the time machine question? It's really simple. If you could go back in your AWS journey, what would you do differently? And the answer surprised me when I first started asking this question. I always thought it would be, oh, you know what? We would have implemented this technology and not that technology, or we would have tried to avoid this one outage. That's actually not what I hear. What I hear are a couple different themes. The first one is around cloud operations. So a lot of customers will bring their on-premises systems onto AWS, right? You might have a logging or a patching system, and they really wish, I wish I would have really looked at Patch Manager or CloudWatch logs and fix some of those things early on, because we spent a bunch of time making it work in AWS, and we still had kind of a suboptimal system. The next thing is infrastructure as code. So a lot of customers will really focus on, hey, let's just get it into AWS, not realizing that's the starting line, not the finish line. And what happens? You get it working, and all of a sudden, hey, marketing needs a new version of this application. I gotta break out all the different bits to put that together. With infrastructure as code, you can build all the resources and configuration requirements for an application. So if you need another environment for a couple of weeks, throw it together, spin it up, and then when you're done, you tear down that stack and you're done with it. You're no longer paying for it. And the last one, and the most common one, is I wish I would have known about your group sooner. I wish I would have gotten AWS involved sooner. We're here to help you, and we have a lot of different ways to do that. I have a solutions architect group in the US, that's what I lead. And we have a couple of different things different ways we can get you deep and your people deep on technology at AWS. The first one is workshops. Workshops are really interesting because you can pick a set of topics that you can get hands on keyboard with a demo environment where you can see and you can ask your solutions architect, okay, well, what if I do it this way? Or should I do it that way? So it's a really fun, interactive kind of environment. The next one, and the one that I get probably the most excitement from our customers, it's called an EBA, which is an experience-based accelerator. Imagine this, you're gonna do a 1-week sprint. Okay, they don't let us lock people in rooms anymore, but we're gonna bring everyone into the same room, IT, operations, everyone you need to get something into production. We're gonna set a goal of, okay, here's how we're gonna transform this one little piece, and then we get it done in a week, and it's really fun and it's interactive. And you have AWS experts in the room to help you through all of the little hiccups that you might encounter. It's a great way to learn. And then the final one is proofs of concepts, so POCs. You might be thinking, oh, well, maybe I should add this service to this application, or maybe how would I make this more resilient? How would I test that? You know, our essays help all the time in proving out your ideas and finding a well-architected way forward for you. So the key thing to remember, we're always here to help, right? So reach out. I'm easy to find. There's not a lot of Thors at AWS, so find me if you can't find your solution architect. More than happy to help. Okay, so what do you know? Right? You want to be successful, and I'm going to break down a bit of a methodology that I've seen work with a lot of different customers. And the first thing I want you to think of is focus on what I call active investment systems, right? Focus on the ones you know the most about. You're developing on these every day. These are the ones that differentiate your company from all the other companies in the world, right? You know these like the back of your hand. And the reason why I say that is when it comes to actually like troubleshooting and determining, oh, is this something wrong with my AWS configuration? Is this something wrong with my app? You know, you built this software, right? So that's really where you want to start. And I got good news for you. That might sound a little bit daunting, but you and your team are the experts in these applications. You built them, right? You know them like the back of your hand. So that's a little bit high level. Let's talk about the specifics if you're moving to AWS. So I like to break it down into roughly 4 waves. So the first wave is core infrastructure. These are all the systems that you're going to need at a very baseline to bring in your first workload. So this might be, what am I going to do about Active Directory? Or, you know, how am I going to build out my account strategy or my security strategy? What am I going to do about logging? What am I going to do to define IAM roles? Stuff like that, so you can get your first workload in. That second wave is your active investment. So this is the ones that I was talking at the very beginning. These are the ones you're developing. You know the code. You know it better than anyone else. Those are the second wave of deployments that you would do. Your third one are your active maintenance. So these are applications, maybe these are COTS applications, your Oracle workloads, things that you know you have to maintain, but you're not actively developing, and you know enough about the application to get it working, but you don't own the source code. And then the last group is all other applications. So this might be the ones that you are, line of business applications, small group applications, that one application that you're like, oh God, not that application again. Like, did you try to reboot it? All of those you really should push to a later wave. Now, I'm not advocating for you to procrastinate. That's not what I'm saying here. What I'm saying is, as you go through these waves, you're learning more and more about AWS, right? So you're building your ability to configure and troubleshoot on AWS. So by the time you get to that fourth wave, you can focus more on, oh, I'm gonna make this thing work, versus, I don't know if this is an AWS issue or if this is an application issue, right? Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so failure. I don't like the term failure. And so let's reframe it a little bit. There's roughly two ways to fail. The first way is the traditional failure, right? We're talking about business impacting, high impact. These are the ones that keep you up at night, right? These are the failures you don't want. Now it might kind of surprise you because Justin's going to talk about this quite a bit too. There's a type 2 failure. And the type 2 failure is, if you want to be successful, get very comfortable with this. It's all about really finding a way forward as quickly as possible. Being comfortable in saying, hey, I'm going to see if this works, and if it doesn't, I'll tear it down, give the resources back, and be happy. At the end of the day, it isn't about, pride or assigning blame or anything else. It's about solving problems as quickly as possible. And with AWS, a lot of those big fail concerns that you've had over the last 5, 10, or even 20 years, they simply don't exist because you don't have to sign a long-term software contract or procure hardware or any of that sort of stuff, right? You can fail fast, give the resources back, and try a different way. I'm going to give you a really quick example of this. A lot of my customers, they'll do a POC. They'll think, hey, maybe I can do a data lake. Maybe I can do a data warehouse. Maybe I can integrate this application with this authorization system. And they know that they can go from idea to implementation in hours or days versus weeks or months. So it gives them a lot of flexibility. And the wonderful thing that I really like as a developer for over 23 years now is you're using the full production grade services the whole time. So you don't have to worry about, oh, hey, this software demo license expired, so it doesn't work anymore. And I'll ask you a question on this also. How many times have you ever had a business group ask you, hey, I need you to fix this right away? Anyone ever have that where they're like, hey, I need you to demo, we need a solution, right? Okay, and then you put it together over the weekend, you ignore the family for the weekend, you put it together, you get there on Monday and they're like, oh yeah, it got deprioritized. It's gonna be a couple weeks before I can test it, or a month, or 6 weeks. The nice thing about AWS is you can do these quick POCs. And if you're not gonna use the environment, you can spin it down. Or if you're using serverless, it'll automatically spin up and spin down for when they wanna test. You don't have to do a bunch of planning and have resources sitting out there idling, wasting some of your valuable resources. So with that, I'm going to bring Justin up on the stage with me, and he's going to talk a little bit about his journey at AWS.
Thank you, Thor. Right. All right, let's get started. So first, I want to start talking a little bit about who is Allspring. Allspring is a very mature asset management firm, formerly Wells Fargo Asset Management. We divested, and I'll go into the timeline in a second, but we divested about 2 years ago and formed Allspring. We think of ourselves as a very intentional investor. We look to invest with purpose and see around corners, but we also look to leverage technology in addition to our very mature asset management business. We've really invested in that. We're 20% employee owned, and right now we've got about $590 billion in assets under advisement. So our journey started in 1995 when Wells Fargo Asset Management was created, so about 29 years ago. The divestment happened or started in around 2021. It was a great time to start trying to buy a bunch of technology. I'll get into that in a moment. In November of 21, we rebranded as Allspring. And then in October of 21, I joined and started trying to pick up the migration. So we are a combination right now of a very mature asset management business and a technology startup at scale. So it's a little bit of a who am I, because I'm talking about Allspring. Allspring is the star of the show. But the 30 seconds on who I am: I have 30 years in technology, 14 plus years now in the financial space, and 6 of them at AWS. I bring that up because it does bias me, but not in the way you think. You can ask Thor and his compatriots afterwards. I go after them on everything. I very much believe in the platform and push it, and I have poached very heavily from AWS as a result. And come on, there we go. So, all right, so we started in 21 with a big infrastructure decision. So we hit that planning phase. We knew the divestiture was coming. We had to make a quick key decision between, do we invest in data centers? Do we migrate to the cloud? Now, if you guys remember the approximate time frame of 2021, you know that that was a rough time to be procuring hardware. It kind of biased our decisions. But we really were bought into investing in technology, using technology to enrich our very established asset management business. So we knew we had to migrate around 60 workloads. We knew we needed an environment we could move into quickly, one that we could do pretty much like for like. That was really important to us, to migrate and do no harm. We were a heavy Microsoft shop. We had a lot of SQL, a lot of Windows, a lot of Active Directory, .NET. We also had a lot of Oracle databases. We needed to really move fast. We needed to be, to steal an Amazon term, we needed to be scrappy. We needed to do it with as little people as quickly as possible, because at the same time that we were building this infrastructure for the migration, we were building our internal competency. We were building everything at the same time. So we kind of had to make that no-go decision on data center versus cloud. And again, like I said, we had to do it safely and efficiently. We had to set ourselves up for the future, and we had to move quickly. As I'm sure you can imagine, as a large asset manager, time is money. It was very important to us to be up and running as quickly as possible and to get out of the data center where our applications were living at the time. So, just a little bit of a view of kind of where we started, what we were. We were very data heavy. We had a lot of data to move, a lot of databases, a lot of traditional data, a lot of applications. The meat and potatoes of compute. A lot of cores, a lot of storage. I was corrected by one of my engineers earlier, or one of my engineering leaders earlier, in that I left out another, I think, 500 terabytes worth of storage that's in bucket storage. I didn't actually look at that stuff. I was just looking at the database and application storage. But that kind of spread across about 60 bespoke workloads with a lot of interconnection. So we took stock of what we had. We had a lot of data, a lot of relational databases, a lot of storage requirements. We just needed to spin out compute instances, do like for like, do no harm. Like I said, that was our big focus. So we had to figure out how we could do this as quickly as possible. As I'm sure you guys can figure out the lead, we ended up very heavily in AWS. I'll start talking about that in a second. So I fully admit this slide was in the demo deck when they gave it to me, and I had to use it. It really spoke to me because 2021 was not a long, or the very end of 2021 was not a long time ago in the grand scheme of things. And our spend was next to nothing in AWS. The traditional small business, really just getting ourselves started. In less than 2 years, really, of that migration, I think we've grown, just looking at spend and instance count and all that thing, 20 times. And we're still growing, and we're really enjoying that every time we need to build out a new workload that we want to go fast, fail fast, we can just go. Like, there's very little barrier for us. I will speak a bit about the kind of control on that side a little later, but I did want to kind of grab that slide and talk to how quickly we were able to go. All right, so why did we end up with AWS? So first and foremost, I will say the M word. We are a multi-cloud shop. We made the strategic decision to be in the best place for each of the pieces of technology we needed. This is where I said that bias that I have came in. Amazon biased me really hard towards fit for purpose and doing the best thing. And that landed all of our production workloads in AWS. Our development, our production, our UAT is there. We leverage other partners for things that they're really good at, but in terms of stability, managed services, and just functionality, we really found that AWS was a huge help to us. Operability, stability, and maturity of each service was very important to us. We were moving over a ton of data, a ton of databases, things like that. I needed to know that managed services were available and capable for all of my needs. They can meet all of those things, and that they could let me do it with very minimal management. At the end of the day, I wanted to do as much of this with a focus on the migration and a real skeleton crew on operations, and then pivot that over time. The offerings around, managed services, basic kind of, serverless containerization, all of the meat and potatoes, where I can put my data. They really had everything I wanted. So it was very important to us. I threw up kind of this very basic slide of just kind of what a multi-tier app looks like. Don't get too distracted by the gratuitous complexity here. I put this up more to illustrate than anything else that our typical application was just a standard multi-tier application in a data center. And we came in with that do no harm approach. That was very important to us. So, the database, the compute, just get it over. What we were able to do at that same time, leveraging the basic primitives of AWS, the distribution, the separation of availability zones, regions, all of that stuff, is change very little on the way in and gain reliability and resilience. It really helped us just going to that very standard basic model to not change and benefit, provide better. Okay, so we leverage a lot of shared services, and Thor was super helpful in making this a click-through for me and warned me, and I didn't realize where they were. So managed services was a big one for us. I and my team are very capable when it comes to the standard things like directory services, database management, storage management, end user device management, backups, all of that stuff. We have the skill set. We do not have the time and the manpower. That is an important thing, like an important delineation. A lot of companies, and we started kind of thinking about this really hard, a lot of companies make that decision point. They say, I have the skills, I can do it. We stepped back and looked and said, we have the skills, but we don't want to do it. I want to have my DBAs focus on, building better queries, migrating data, doing the things that make my business, more functional. I want a ton of storage. We use FSXN a ton. It was great. We had NetApp competency. We had a ton of just standard SMB and NFS storage. We needed to throw it somewhere that meant that I did not need a storage admin. It was great, huge win. And we really leaned on a lot of those services. I have to mention RDS because it's there, because I use the heck out of it. I'm a huge Oracle and Microsoft SQL shop. And being out of the database migration, the instance replication game, just setting it and moving away, not spending energy on that, is a huge win for the business. It means that I can focus on delivering value through technology, not supporting infrastructure. Come on, there we go. We also used a lot of kind of basic, core AWS services. Systems Manager has been a huge hero for me. As I migrated things over, we really talked about, we have all these instances. Part of our divestiture was, we have workloads. Okay, cool. You have workloads. What about your central infrastructure? How do you update it? How do you manage it? How do you handle users? How do you handle authentication? The things that we all kind of buzz past because they're usually table stakes. We set them up first. We had to set them up while we were migrating. So we really leaned heavily on the basic services, the guard duties, the inspectors to keep us kind of doing things safely and securely while we're running fast. Systems manager for a lot of our inventory management and updates. I'll actually tell you guys all a little secret. I actually got to the point where I now use Systems Manager to perform Windows updates in other clouds, not just in AWS. It's a decision I never thought I was going to make, but it ended up being more robust and more flexible and more ubiquitous for us. And we made the decision, having one update methodology across our instances, it made us faster. It made us better. Look at it on a single pane of glass. I don't have to tell my security or patch team to look here and there and there. They look in one spot. Really started helping us. And then cost. This is a passion one for me. I will come back to this later, but I really wanted to say, as you are migrating, as you are thinking about it, think about cost management day one. And I don't mean be, cheap. I don't mean pick the simplest options. I don't mean any of that. I mean, think about, the plans, the help, the programs that Amazon has that allow you to cost manage early. They talk about it very late, usually in the game. It's just kind of the nature of most migrations. But if you have a view to your migration, think about it early. So, let me grab a quick drink. So, at the end of the day, I said we were kind of a startup at scale. We're very mature business, but very new from a technology team. So for us, AWS was a paradigm shift. It was a very big shift. The availability, performance, scalability kind of aspects of cloud are very different for a well-established financial that is used to on-prem. It's just thinking about things differently. It's not perfect. We've had outages, we've had issues. The differentiator for us is as we get more and more native, we're doing all of those things, our ability to recover, our ability to build more resiliently, to absorb more issues, any of those things continues to grow. And that's table stakes. That's with changing our workloads minimally. That was an important point to us. We have outages, we have mistakes, we do all those things just like everyone else. But, like I said, anchoring on those basic primitives has just made us better with a minimal investment for actual workload change, workload modernization. And that's kind of something that we like, honestly, about AWS. It lets us, to Thor's earlier point, it lets us kind of fail fast in that front. It lets us kind of buffer, build a little bit extra. All right. This was the actual slide where I was supposed to take a drink, so. So I wanted to kind of talk about our journey. I think it's important to really put cards on the table about what a journey looks like. This is an eye chart slide. I apologize for that. The top band is what we're really talking about. So prior to mid-2022, we were in the data center. All of our workloads were living in Wells Fargo data centers. We were planning to move them out. We did the original scoping. We did the workload approximation. We did kind of all of those planning, negotiate, partner selection, scope, all of that. And then we hit the road, in later 2022, we started the actual migration. And you'll notice I put in sequencing again as a step because it's important to realize that if you're doing these large-scale migrations, you plan, you understand the interconnectivity of all of your applications, you build all of these things out, and then you get to the point where you're actually migrating them, and team availability, team readiness, unforeseen dependencies, any one of these other things will change that sequencing. Be ready to be flexible. 2022, 2023 was all about flexibility for us. Once we hit mid-2024, so this year, we really started shifting our focus to optimization, from a cost comparison, from a consolidation perspective. For those of you that are familiar with the history of Wells Fargo and Wells Fargo Asset Management, they grew by picking up a lot of different asset management firms and stuff over time. So we have a lot of very mature, disparate workloads that really are starting to benefit from our ability to build similarly, build in parallel, interconnect, do these things quickly. So that's what 2024 has been all about for us. We are thinking about modernization, but we're not anchored to it. And I think this is an important part of the migration journey. You don't want to break things on the way in. Looking at cloud technologies, cloud availability, it's important to think about all these great things that you have ahead of you, but you also want to be careful not to get too excited. And then as we move into 2025 and beyond, we're going to be in the modernization phase. That's a perpetual phase for us. We're going to be looking at workloads, make them better, rinse and repeat. There's always opportunity there. All right, our approach to this. So we started partner-led. That was really important. I said we started really lean. We were coming out. We had partners that really just focused in, helped us get off the ground. They did everything in the beginning. We built internal competency after that. So the partners were there before me, before I started building my teams. We were getting bootstrapped out, getting those primitives in place, and then building ourselves. So once we started having that internal competency, we shifted much more to us leading and the partner following. We took things over as we were ready. We didn't rush into that. And then once we got there, we started diversifying our partners. So we brought in more partners that were good at different things, really helping us to build and scale while we scaled ourselves. And now we're kind of in that continuous growth mode where we make that selection every time, that the position we want to be in, whether this is a partner diversification opportunity, an internal competency opportunity, a bootstrap competency kind of thing. We're constantly evaluating and building this team because we built in flight. We built mid-migration, so we became really comfortable with that continuous kind of refactoring of skill set as needed. All right, so our experience since moving. So I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of the paradigm shift that we had. This particular instance was just an interesting one of moving workloads that had lived in the data center for quite some time and really made sense in the data center. And then we moved it and everybody thought it was the same and everybody thought they'd troubleshoot the same and they wouldn't. So at the time, cloud engineering was one of my teams and they owned the really difficult migration opportunities. So our focus was kind of helping the teams when they needed it. We got the infrastructure up, they did the migration, and then they were off and running. We had one of the teams that did analysis. They did complex mathematic computations across our portfolio, and they really needed to be out early. So they were one of the very first workloads we moved because they wanted a long time to run in production parallel and validate results. Very important to them as they're running these complex computations, which I admit are way beyond me because I am not a PhD in mathematics. They're running these computations. They wanted to make sure that the tried and true, tested, on-prem infrastructure was yielding the same results. And it wasn't. They made sure the sequencing was correct, the formulas was correct, everything. This was like for like, but we were getting weird errors. They didn't know what to do. They were convinced it was a vendor problem. And by vendor problem, I mean the vendor that actually ran the computational software. So they spent about 6 months testing with that vendor and really trying to dig into this in the traditional on-prem approach. When deadlines were kind of really fast approaching, that's when they pulled us in. They came to us. So we kind of jumped in, we took a look. It was a very traditional compute-heavy workload, a lot of big instances, a lot of SQL Server stuff. Nothing really jumped out. We did the first thing you would. We jumped in, we started looking at CloudWatch metrics, we started looking at everything. Nothing jumped out except for EBS bandwidth usage. We said, okay, cool. They're doing calculations, they're generating tons of data. Maybe they're storming the drives, we don't know. We'll look, we'll see what the story is with volumes. So we looked at instance sizing. This was the first kind of aha moment for the team. We said, cool, we'll just make all your instances bigger. You need more EBS bandwidth? Okay, I'll give you double, no problem. They looked at us like we were crazy, but we convinced them, nope, we're just turning the system off, turning it back on, magic will happen. One of the really fun things that jumped out at this point was that the errors, specific errors they were seeing, were not predictable. It was the best part of it. We knew it would fail approximately within a week. We weren't positive when. So we started going, we thought we had a smoking gun, we were wrong. So we decided to shift their perspective a bit on this one. This is one where, as an early Cloud Journey customer, we were able to do something with the cloud that made no sense to them and really jumped us ahead. We saw the issue, we doubled the instance size first. We doubled it again when that didn't fix it. We did the basics. Those things don't work. Became very clear that the failure was very unpredictable. It was hard to document. It was hard to tell when it would happen. It could take days. This was not something that we were going to solve with the let's change one thing, let's wait, let's see, which is really what they were anchoring on. So we said to them, you know what, we're going to do this our way. We're not going to do this standard, let's test one thing, let's tweak, let's test for 5 or 6 days, let's come back. We said, we're going to use AWS. We're going to build 6 of your environment. I'm just going to replicate the heck out of it. And I'm going to change everything at once. They really did not get this concept until they realized that we were able to find out what it was in 2 days. They had been working on it for 6 months. It turned out it was a very strange floating point calculation error that just happened on certain CPU types. They had really anchored on the way in on the particular type of CPUs they wanted because it seemed like for like. We were able to instantly kind of narrow down everything at once. For those of you that have been cloud native for a while, for those of you that think about, infrastructure as code, rapid deployment, those kind of things, this is, relatively common. You can do this kind of stuff. You can stamp out infrastructure. For traditional businesses that have not anchored on that and have not done that and have sat behind months of procurement potential, all of that for that long, this was game changing. To that point, we were able to, the point that I left out, we were able to say, is it network, is it EBS, is it CPU, is it memory, is it size, all at once. That was mind-blowing to them. So this is the one I said I was going to come back to. I wanted to talk about kind of cost management. Really wanted to talk about this. This is my kind of call to arms for all of you, especially if you're early in your migration journey. Lean on your AWS team. Really push them. Sizing is hard to get right, especially when you're not doing like for like. You're moving out of the data center where you had one given infrastructure type. You were using a virtualization, on-prem or something to that effect, but you were using something that was an understood unit, that was a standard procurement thing, and you're moving to a world where you have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of instance types and hundreds of different service types and all of that stuff. Sizing is wrong, or sizing is hard, it's sloppy, it's fine to get it wrong. Like that's really a message we tried to really push on them. You're generating tons of data. With everything you do, you can figure out the sizing. You can come back to it. AWS let us get it wrong, and they have a lot of tools, a lot of things that will come and help you for, getting the most cost benefit as you're going. Ask them early. Look at compute savings plans, look at things like that. Always work with the team. If you don't know what you're doing, if you're running a new service, any of those things, push them. Really, we were big on kind of automation, especially in the cost management side. Turning down instances automatically that we're not using, all of those things, turning off dev on the weekends, really kind of anchoring on those things. Thinking about those early will give you a lot of headroom later. Very, very important to us. It's also never too late or too early. That's an important point on those. If you don't get it right, if you don't have the automation for sizing, for cost control, for instance, online time, any of those things, start working on it. Like anytime you get it in there, it will give you cost benefit. And that cost benefit, I can tell you from a long-term migration, will pay off more and more later when you're looking to invest in additional technologies you're looking to add. Come on. All right, future plans. I wanted to kind of set my friend Vikas up a little bit. What do we do next? So we are 100% in the cloud now. That is an important thing for us. We are totally out of the data center, but we are operating as though we were in a data center in a lot of ways. So now we're targeting the monolithic applications to start breaking them down, to untangle a lot of that, circular workloads, I'll call them. I'm sure if you guys have migrated older workloads, you all know what I'm talking about. Really kind of doing service consolidation. Databases, very, very important to us. I really want to move us to more scalable, more easily manageable, more open, I'll say less licensed database options. That is something that is very important to us, but we want to make our infrastructure as simple, as streamlined as possible. Verbosity, less moving parts, get away from the we did everything manually style. The more we can do that, we win. It's very much, every little piece is a huge win. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Vikas to show you guys some of the tooling that AWS is able to bring to bear. And go. Thank you, sir.
So this is not the first time Justin asked me to demo something, and I'm happy to do that again. So first of all, thank you, Justin, for sharing the awesome journey here. So before we talk about modernizing what modern application means, so as Justin mentioned, we had successfully migrated the complete on-premise environment to AWS. Now, if you think about migration is first half of the game. So there is whole another half, which is modernization. That's where Allspring and AWS will be focusing in the next few years. Not even few years, few months, I guess. So next month, we'll be starting on modernization. So myself, Vikas, I'm a senior solutions architect focused on the Microsoft workloads, helping customers migrate and modernize the workloads when moving to AWS. So let's take a step back and understand what is modern application mean. So in my opinion, modern application is an application that is built using cloud native architectures. So we had successfully migrated to AWS. So once you are on AWS, you have to take advantage of AWS services, like taking advantage of managed services, taking advantage of serverless technologies, integrated AI, inbuilt monitoring. So that's where the modern application comes to the play. As you already know that Allspring is already working, Allspring developers are taking advantage of serverless technologies like Lambda, queuing services, event-driven architectures. So the biggest point is when it comes to databases only, because it's a monolithic architecture, and how do we modernize the databases? If I'm a DBA a couple years back, if someone asked me to okay, we are running SQL Server, move to PostgreSQL or MySQL, the first question that comes to my mind is how do I do that? So many applications are connected to this database. How much effort is needed to migrate to that target database? What is the best target database platform? So how do I find out that? So that's where the schema conversion tool comes to the rescue. So what schema conversion tool helps us to do that is it provides a project-based user interface that can automatically convert your database schema. So if schema conversion tool is not able to convert your database schema, it does provide guidance to you to see how you can convert your database schema to the target platform. So the key takeaway I want everyone to remember from this slide is schema conversion tool supports multiple source database engines. In Allspring's use case, we are going to be focusing on SQL Server and Oracle. For today's demo, I'll be doing how we can convert our SQL Server database schema to the target database. So at this point of time, I don't know what my target database is. So this schema conversion tool helped me to identify that. And schema conversion tool will provide a database migration assessment report that will tell you like how much effort you have to put to go to the target database platform. So now we are going to see that like how schema conversion tool helps us to identify the best target engine, how much effort it required to go to the target engine, and how schema conversion tool can convert the code automatically for you. So let's do the quick demo here. Okay. So as you can see here, right, I'm going to use the local SQL server. I'm connecting to the SQL server. So to level set here, I'm going to use the SQL server which is installed on my local machine, and I'm going to install schema conversion tool on my local machine as well. So AWS schema conversion tool supports both desktop mode, and also you can use it on the AWS console as well. So the point I want to highlight here is, as you can download the schema conversion tool, you don't need to like provide any credentials. You don't need to log in anywhere. You can just use it anytime you want. So it's quick, easy thing to play with it and to convert your database schema. So as you can see here, I'm connected. I connected to my SQL server here, and I created a demo database. So let's connect to the SQL server, and everyone will be familiar with the SQL Server Management Studio. And I created the SCT demo database, and I used the sports analogy before, so I created a table which has like sports, and I created 10, 15 stored procedures and a couple functions and triggers as well. And I want to see how schema conversion tool can help me to move to the open source database engine. So as mentioned before, I already installed the schema conversion tool on my local desktop. So let's open that. As Thor and Justin mentioned, database is like a project-based approach, right? We cannot migrate all databases at the same time. So schema conversion tool provides a project-based user interface. So let's create a new project here. And I'm naming this project as SQL Server Modernization. So as you can see from this database migration project, there are 5 steps involved. As I said before, the first step is selecting your source database and connecting to the source database and selecting your database schema and running the assessment report. So if I click on the source engine, it supports multiple database sources. It's like more than 10, 15 databases, but in our use case, we are going to select SQL Server here. And in the target engine version, we don't know what the target database looks like. We don't know what the target database engine. So I want to see a combined report for the database engine. So I'm going to select the last option and click next. So the second step is connecting to the SQL Server database here. I'm going to provide my SQL Server credentials to connect to the SQL Server database and click test connection. This is just an SSL warning. Schema conversion tool do support SSL to connect to your source database. So I just accept the risk. So I'm able to successfully connect to my source SQL Server. Now choosing a schema. Choosing a schema is nothing but selecting your database which you want to convert. So in my case, it's SCT demo. I'm going to uncheck all other databases and select SCT demo here. Okay. So the next step will be like, we need to understand what the assessment report looks like, and the time it takes to generate that assessment report. It completely depends upon your database size and how many objects you have on the database. And this is a demo database. It's done in a couple minutes. And I want everyone to focus here on the executive summary here. So this executive summary gives a detailed report about like what are the target platforms available for you and how much effort it requires to migrate to the target platform. Like those 98%, 100%, that's the effort, how much it requires for you to go to the target platform. If you want to see a detailed report about each database engine, if you scroll down, it does provide a detailed report for each database engine, like for example, RDS for MySQL and RDS for PostgreSQL as well. So let's quickly go back to the executive summary again, and let's ask those 2 questions which we had before. So let's find out what is the best target platform for us. But looking at this report, as you can see here, RDS for PostgreSQL and Aurora PostgreSQL, 98% of the objects can be automatically converted or with minimal changes. And 52% of the code objects can be automatically converted. So basically looking at this executive summary, it gives me an idea that, okay, PostgreSQL might be the best choice for the application which I just showed you. And if you want to save this report and share it internally with your team, you can save this report and share it internally as well. So there is a save option for you. So let me quickly save that report. and you can have it shared internally with your team as well. So the last step is, so now we identify, like SCT helps us to identify what the target database platform is and how much effort it's required. And the last step is choosing a target database, which we don't have at the moment because before this step, we don't know what is our target database looks like. So we did not provision any resources. We don't want to spend any resources on the resources which we are not going to use. Okay, so when we started this conversation, right, we said that we need 3 things that SCT can do. One is identifying the best target engine and how much effort it requires. And the next one is how it can automatically convert the code for you. So let's quickly look into that, how SCT can convert your code automatically. And I'm going to use virtual targets. Schema conversion tool supports virtual targets, so you don't need to provision resources until you real-time go to the production or real-time do the POCs. So on the right side, you see the target section. If I expand the servers there, you see a suffix virtual for all the targets here. So in our use case, we do know that our database can go to PostgreSQL, and we can use this project wizard to have schema conversion tool to convert your database schema to the PostgreSQL. This is the same connection string settings. So I'm going to connect to my SQL Server source database again, and I'm going to use the same SCT demo database here. And everyone knows that we get SSL warning. So click accept and discontinue. So we are able to successfully connect to the SQL Server. Okay, so the other thing I want, like I've been DBA for like almost 6-7 years. As a DBA mindset, right, what happens if I make changes to the source database? Like if I mistakenly make any changes, it's going to mess up my source database. So that's a common concern as a DBA, right? So schema conversion tool does support offline mode. So let's assume if you accidentally make any changes to the source tables or source procedures, it's not going to affect your database, like real database. So let me quickly show you like how you can run schema conversion tool in offline mode as well. So before we do that, let's load the schema. As you can see, there is a section called loading schema. So it loads all the metadata, stored procedures, and everything for the database. Let's quickly check that here. As you can see, we have all the tables and procedures, everything available in the schema conversion tool now. And if you see on the top, there is a green button saying like disconnect from the server. So once you click on that disconnect from the server, you are disconnecting from your source SQL Server. So if you make any changes here, it's not going to affect your source SQL Server. So that's one cool feature you can take advantage of running that. And let's save this project now, and you don't need to worry about making changes here. It's not going to affect your source production or dev databases here. Now we need to create a mapping here. So the next step is we have to create a mapping so that you can convert your SQL Server to the PostgreSQL. So there's a section, click on create mapping, and you can see here the source path is SQL Server and the target path is our virtual Aurora PostgreSQL. To run the conversion, you have to go to main menu and right click on your database here. You see there's a section create report. We already ran the report, so we don't need to run the report again. So let's click on convert schema. So as I said before, the conversion also depends upon the number of objects you have. And for this use case, as you can see, it is going through every stored procedure. It will done in a couple minutes. Okay, so schema conversion is done already. Let's look into our stored procedures and tables, like how it looks like on the PG SQL side, like PostgreSQL side. So as you can see here, it does migrate everything, like that number of tables you have on the source side, the same number of tables you have on the target side as well. And all the stored procedures, triggers, everything got replicated. So let's focus on one stored procedure here. So as you can see, there is a red warning signs on couple stored procedures, and for some of them, there is no warning sign. I want you to focus on like one stored procedure for the demo, as you generate ticket stored procedure. And there is a warning on the new ID function over there. Like if you go to the line number 14 of the declare variable on the top section on the SQL Server side, we are using a new ID function on the SQL Server side. But that new ID function is not available on the PostgreSQL. So why is it highlighting yellow? So let's look at that, what that yellow highlight mean here. So to do that right, so let's look at, and if you see in the bottom section also, so schema conversion tool added an extension already, but I want to identify what is that highlight mean, what is that warning mean. So let's look into that assessment again now. So you can switch back between the assessments and you can get those recommendations I said before, right? You can get those recommendations as well. So looking at that assessment, as you can see here, it is telling you that if you want to use new ID function on PostgreSQL side, you have to use that UUID OSSP extension. So it is providing you that guidance, and schema conversion tool already changed that code for you, added that extension as part of the procedure there. Okay, I want to, so PostgreSQL extensions might be something new to like Postgre. If you're not familiar with PGSQL, extensions might be something new. But I want you to focus on like the small thing right here. If you see line number 4, 5, 6, and 7, declare variables. The way we declare variables on the SQL server is different on the PostgreSQL side. So if you declare at the rate E_ID begin, it's different on the PostgreSQL side. So the point I want to highlight here is schema conversion tool automatically converted your source SQL server schema to the target PGSQL. So you no need to do like a lot of work. SCT does the heavy lifting for you. Okay, so it might be easy for some of you, but it might look complicated. But we all need help. As Thor and Justin mentioned, this is not a project. This is a journey, and it's always fun to work with others in this journey. And I want to highlight some of the AWS teams that can help you in this journey and make you successful. AWS account team, which includes like account managers, technical account managers, solutions architects, those teams are dedicated to you and your account to help you in this migration journey. AWS specialist teams, which includes like sales specialists, specialist solutions architects like myself, who are expertise on one particular domain to guide you in the best practices. And AWS partners, AWS has a vast partner network that can help you in the whole migration and modernization journey. If you want to fill a gap in your journey, please feel free to reach out to the AWS vast partner network. Last but not the least, AWS training and certifications. In my opinion, if you want to get familiarized with AWS services around best practices, I feel like certification is the best way to go. The key 3 takeaways from this whole session I want everyone to remember is have a plan that makes you succeed, like migration for the first half and modernization for the second half. Having that plan helps you to mitigate those issues. Like for example, I have not seen a single migration that has been successful without any issues. So having that plan upfront helps you mitigate those issues. That can help you to fail fast and fail cheap. So take advantage of like AWS, right? You're not paying upfront. You just pay as you go. So fail fast and fail cheap. Let's assume if you're not able to overcome any issue which you are experiencing, and always remember that AWS is here to help you. And thank you everyone for joining today and spending time with us. Please complete the session survey and enjoy your rest of the reInvent. If you have any questions, we'll be just standing outside the door and we're happy to answer. And I also want everyone to play the schema conversion tool maybe after the reInvent. Just download the schema conversion tool, connect to your SQL server or Oracle database, and see the database migration assessment report, how it looks like, and share that info with us, and we're happy to help you on your modernization journey. Thank you again.